The infamous scene that got Bewitched canceled. When Bewitched was on the air, millions of fans pushed their faces against the television, hoping to see what mischief Samantha would get up to next. You may have even attempted the famous nose wiggle yourself. But although the program seemed to be a lot of fun to film, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. The secrets that Bewitched creators tried to keep hidden were far from magical, including the true cause of the show's cancellation. Montgomery's first pregnancy was covered up. Montgomery gave birth 3 times while on the program, although only 2 of her pregnancies were shown as Tabitha and Adam's miracle deliveries. Yes, the actress was pregnant in season 1, but you'd never guess it. The whole incident was hidden on TV because the network thought it was unseemly for Sam and Darren to be expecting a child so soon after saying "I do." Strange, yet that was the norm back then. Ouch! Dick York mysteriously departed from the scene after 5 seasons on the program. The producers finally had their Darren, and whoever took his place was none other than Dick Sargent. However, there was a sad explanation. York sustained a severe accident while shooting. They came to Cordura, severing many muscles on the right side of his back. Doctors prescribed pain relievers, but the actor never fully healed. The final straw. York worked on the 5th season while having a 105-degree temperature. The flashing illumination became too much while I was seated on the set. York had a seizure and was transported to the hospital. As if by magic, he resigned immediately. Agnes Moorehead couldn't stand Dick Sargent. While most viewers grew to like Dick Sargent as a substitute for Dick York, Agnes Moorehead, who portrayed Samantha's mother and Dora, couldn't like the new Darren. As a result, there were some uncomfortable moments on set. Sargent told Chicago Outlines, "About the 3rd or 4th show I was in, Moorehead said to the people in front of me, they should never meddle with success." What could she possibly have meant? Montgomery wanted to retire before Bewitched began filming. But you should know that Montgomery almost didn't accept the Bewitched part. Pilato informed the British tabloid Daily Mirror that the celebrity had planned to retire from performing before filming even began on the show. But her husband, Asher, finally persuaded her differently, and we're grateful he did. York was in love with Montgomery. Numerous men, including one of her co-stars, idolized Montgomery. Yes, York was allegedly madly in love with the actress. However, the feelings were not reciprocated. Montgomery was married to the show's producer, Pilato said on Fox News, and it became very uncomfortable for her. Awkward. ABC tried to make everyone forget Dick York. Dick York, the original Darren actor, abruptly quit Bewitched due to back discomfort and a painkiller addiction. This presented a challenge for the designers. Would audiences like the replacement, Dick Sargent, or would they want York to return? To ensure that people supported Sargent before he arrived on screen, ABC reran every episode in which York did not appear. Devious. Elizabeth Montgomery had an affair with a producer. Let's just say Elizabeth Montgomery and Bill Asher's marriage was not the most solid. According to the allegations, Asher cheated on her multiple times. In reaction, the Bewitched actress may have had an affair with Richard Michaels, one of the show's other producers. Montgomery's relationship with Asher ended up crumbling, and the two ended up seeing each other for 2 years. The stars got drunk on set. Anyone who's watched an episode of Mad Men knows that views about office drinking were quite different in the 1960s. That explains why the Bewitched performers drank actual booze while their characters had beverages. And sure, several sequences were filmed when the stars were, shall we say, a touch tipsy. Montgomery wasn't the first choice to play Samantha. It's difficult to envision anyone else twitching their nose in such a cute way. However, the producers of Bewitched had another actress in mind for the major role. Tammy Grimes, who passed the part due to Samantha's intentions, steps forward. Herbie J. Pilato, a writer and vintage TV fan, told Fox News she felt like if the character had all this power, why doesn't she cure all the ills in the world? That's an excellent point. Loose-lipped. Although Samantha famously twitched her nose to trigger her powers, Erin Murphy revealed that Montgomery really moved her top lip. According to director William Asher, it was a nervous twitch. That's gotta hurt. Samantha would similarly lift her arms as the enchantment worked its spell on her. In fact, she had to remain totally motionless as crew workers worked on the scene. What a fantastic arm exercise. Montgomery and Moorhead fought on set. Montgomery and on-screen mother Moorhead also didn't seem to be in a romantic relationship. On one occasion, the Samantha actress took a sly dig at Moorhead's less than pleasant on-set conduct. After getting an ugly glance in return, Montgomery said, "Don't you look at me that way." Meow. Alice Pierce continued filming until the day she died. Alice Pierce's passion for her profession is unquestionable. During her time as Gladys, the actress fought cancer. She was even shooting on the day she died from the condition, which is incredible. But because the show had to go on, Sandra Gould took Pierce's place after her tragic passing. 2 months after her death, Alice received a posthumous Emmy for outstanding performance by an actress in a supporting role in a comedy. York needed special furniture on set. York's back troubles were so bad that he required special equipment while shooting. When it came to moving around on the Bewitched set, he even needed the help of his co-stars. You now see why Darren was constantly seated or lying down on the program. The Murphy twins are the show's only surviving regulars. During Bewitched's run, Aaron and Diane Murphy took turns portraying Tabitha, and given that they were by far the youngest members of the core group, it's no wonder that they've outlived all their co-stars. That's right. Following Bernard Fox's death in 2016, the Murphys are the only remaining Bewitched cast members. Seeing double. Elizabeth Montgomery was the show's main attraction, but did you know she also portrayed another character on Bewitched? She also appeared as Samantha's cousin, Serena, and as the ghostly Pandora Spox. Montgomery's alter ego received fan mail. Montgomery did double duty as Samantha's livelier cousin, Serena. However, when the performer sought to be billed for her performance as Pandora Spox, a lot of fans were taken aback. Some of them sent fan mail to Spox directly, believing that a different actress was portraying Serena. The show wasn't actually canceled for low ratings. Many programs have been canceled because people are no longer tuning in. Bewitched, on the other hand, was not one of them. In actuality, the comedy was supposedly renewed for 2 more years prior to the last episode in 1972. So where did it all go wrong? Montgomery basically decided she'd had enough of twitching her nose. At the same time, the actress's marriage to Asher was crumbling, making days on set with him a difficult proposition. Stingy on set. In truth, Hollywood, particularly for supporting performers, isn't all that glamorous. They would have to bring their own attire from home to wear on site while shooting. Some clothing items, though, were a little more unique. Agnes Moorehead wore a particular brooch as Samantha's mother and Dora. She knew Elizabeth Montgomery was taken with the beauty of the pin, so when she died, she left it to her on-screen daughter. The show inspired a form of anime. If you're a lover of anime, you've undoubtedly heard of the magical girl subgenre. What you may not realize is that this particular style of Japanese animation had its origins in a 1960s American comedy. Yes, Bewitched is said to have inspired the notion of young girls possessing magical abilities. It borrowed heavily from 2 films. It turns out that Bewitched isn't as unique as you believe. I Married a Witch in 1942 and Bell, Book and Candle in 1958 both appear to have had a significant influence on the comedy's premise. The program was exempt from any accusations of direct copying, however, because Screen Gems produced it. It was a subsidiary of Columbia Pictures, which produced both pictures. It made network TV history. It's hard to imagine today, but separated couples didn't actually appear on American television until the mid-1960s. That is, until Bewitched. Samantha's feuding parents, Dora and Maurice, are the characters that helped the comedy create television history. The show helped a quiz show contestant become a millionaire. Which of these popular 1960s television shows debuted first? Have you seen Bewitched, Get Smart, Hogan's Heroes, or I Dream of Jeannie? That was the question separating Australian Rob Fulton from the top prize on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So after considerable deliberation, the competitor chose Bewitched as the solution, and he was right. Keep it in mind during your next trivia night. A grown-up Tabitha returned for a YouTube sketch. Erin Murphy recreated her most famous role in a self-referential YouTube skit in 2019. The actress portrayed a grown-up Tabitha who seeks treatment for her unusual childhood experiences in an episode of the online TV series TV Therapy. And quite amusingly, her father changed his appearance, alluding to the changeover from York to Sergeant in the Darren role. The series was accused of promoting devil worship. Bewitched's family-friendly shenanigans don't get much more wholesome than that. However, before the first episode aired, several people thought that the show was the product of Beelzebub. Protests were held in numerous sections of the Bible Belt since it was thought that the program would glorify demon worship. Its theme tune had lyrics. Remember the catchy theme song that played throughout the opening credits? There are various versions going around with lyrics written by Howard Greenfield. Peggy Lee and Steve Lawrence were among others who sang lyrics like "Bewitched, bewitched, you've got me in your spell. Bewitched, bewitched, you know your craft so well." We'll never hear it again in the same way. Free the nipple. Montgomery stopped wearing a bra when shooting Bewitched at the conclusion of her run. She did it to promote the women's freedom movement, yet it still generated some controversy. Sargent didn't die from AIDS. You may have heard that Dick Sargent, the second actor to portray Darren, died of AIDS, but as Pilato informed Fox News, that's not the case. Sargent was a man who happened to be gay, he said, but that's been a misconception all these years. In fact, the actor died of prostate cancer in 1994. Montgomery picked Tabitha's name. Montgomery sought inspiration from another performer after being granted the distinction of naming her on-screen kid. The leading lady of Bewitched was completely enamored with the second name Edward Andrews had given his two daughters, Abigail and Tabitha. "I loved it because it was so old-fashioned," Montgomery said of her selection. There was a lesser-known spin-off. Even the most devoted Bewitched fans are likely to have forgotten about the spin-off. Yes, a sister program aired briefly on ABC in the late 1970s. Tabitha saw Samantha and Darren's daughter take center stage, as the title indicates. However, Lisa Hartman took on the role rather than the Murphy twins. Maybe you saw her on The Masked Singer in 2020. Samantha's nose twitch was nothing but trickery. Samantha's nose was famous for twitching whenever something spectacular was about to happen. While many fans attempted to imitate Elizabeth Montgomery's signature dance, they should be aware that it was all due to some studio trick hocus pocus. Colorist dissatisfied, but it's correct. Erin Murphy, who portrayed Samantha's daughter Tabitha, claimed in an interview with Parade that the nose twitch was really a camera trick. Montgomery was the inspiration for her famous move. When it comes to that twitch, Montgomery has to take credit. Herbie Pilato, historian, claims that Montgomery's peculiar behavior was based on a natural movement she would make when anxious. So director William Asher, who happened to be Montgomery's husband, incorporated her tic into the production. And the rest is television history. The Darren swap started a trend. Even though the switch from York to Sargent fooled some viewers, more perceptive viewers immediately noticed the difference between the two performers. In fact, the change was so startling, for some, the phrase "the Darren syndrome," the process of replacing main performers with new stars, eventually entered the Hollywood language. A very famous actress could have played Tabitha. Bewitched would not be the same without Samantha and Darren's daughter, Tabitha. We can't fathom anyone other than Erin Murphy doing the job. But did you know that future Silence of the Lambs actress Jodie Foster nearly got the part? Yes, indeed. Helen Hunt was also considered for the role of Tabitha. Paul Lynde actually had two roles. Paul Lynde rose to fame as crazy Uncle Arthur and rapidly became a popular recurring character. Fans of the comedy will be aware that Lynde played other roles in addition to Arthur. The actor first appeared on Bewitched as a worried driving teacher in the episode "Driving is the Only Way to Fly." He apparently pleased the powers that be so much that he eventually landed a larger position. Montgomery hated the title sequence. Even if you've never watched an episode of Bewitched, possibly because you were too young, you've definitely seen the legendary animated opener. Hanna-Barbera was the mastermind behind it. However, one individual was not pleased. Who's the unknown hater? Elizabeth Montgomery, please. Montgomery reportedly thought the show's production staff might have come up with something more imaginative. The theme song had an unlikely source. Even if you haven't seen the animated entrance, you'll almost surely recognize the Bewitched theme song. We're sure you're tempted right now. However, although the renowned earworm has since become associated with the program, it was not entirely original. The lively music was a version of a jingle used in Chevrolet ads. Given that Chevy sponsored Bewitched, we can't help but wonder whether subliminal messaging was involved. Bewitched had something unexpected in common with I Dream of Jeannie. Bewitched's blend of fantasy and humor spawned a slew of imitators, including NBC's I Dream of Jeannie. Along with the obvious narrative and character connections, Jeannie shared information with Bewitched that only observant viewers would detect. Because their sound stages were so close to each other, the two sitcoms were able to share sets and props. And the show shared something with the Partridge Family too. Bewitched has several similarities with another well-known program. Remember the Kravitz's home and Samantha's inquisitive neighbors? You may remember it from the Partridge Family. Yes, David Cassidy once passed through those doors. What a lucky structure. The cast could take advantage of a very nice perk. Working on every TV program has its advantages, and working on Bewitched was no exception. I wore all my own clothes on the show, actor Casey Rogers said to the website Bewitched.net. You'd bring your clothing in a week ahead, and the wardrobe would make sure they were all clean, ironed, and adjusted for you. Making a career as an actor only to avoid doing laundry? We're not gonna lie, we're tempted. Mary and Lorne had a weird hobby. Mary and Lorne, like Paul Lynde, quickly became a fan favorite on Bewitched. In fact, her portrayal of Aunt Clara garnered her a posthumous Emmy. But did you know that Lorne's actual hobby served as the inspiration for Clara's well-known love of collecting antique doorknobs? So much so that the actor would often utilize props from her personal stockpile. The special effects left a lot to be desired. The use of special effects in Bewitched may have been necessary due to Samantha's magic, but the technology at the time severely limited the show. Producers practically halted recording during her house cleaning phase. For example, while staff cleaned up the set, when the stage was clear, they resumed rolling. Montgomery, however, had to stay in the same uncomfortable posture until everything was done. Montgomery got an offer she couldn't refuse. Despite the fact that Elizabeth Montgomery gained a lot of fame and money from the program, she rapidly fell out of love with it. Why? She wanted a meatier role, one that would test her. So, following the 5th season of Bewitched, Montgomery made plans to quit. The only thing that enticed her return was a substantial wage increase. The show was interrupted for a historic event. While Bewitched wasn't precisely meet the press, politics did have an impact on the show's 8-year existence. Along with beginning production on the same day as John F. Kennedy's assassination, the program also aired during the assassination of Martin Luther King. The 1968 episode I Confess had to be delayed due to the civil rights leader's death. Montgomery became very rich off the show. Despite the fact that Montgomery had little affection for Bewitched towards the end, she enjoyed its advantages long after the show was canceled. The actress received millions via syndication since she held a 20% interest in the production, and everything added up. Montgomery's net worth was estimated to be $40 million at the time of her death in 1995. York and Moorhead were friends off-camera. Darren and Endora were notoriously at odds on TV, but they were truly best of friends when the cameras were turned off. Moorhead, a staunch fundamentalist, admired York's acceptance of his spiritual side. His acting abilities also captivated her. Aww. Erin Murphy now runs an ice pops company. Erin Murphy looks to have a lot of strings attached to her bow. In 2014, she demonstrated her entrepreneurial drive by co-founding a company that produces thirst-quenching, yet low-calorie ice pops. You would never offer slim chillers to children. They specialize in vodka martinis after all. It was spoofed in WandaVision. A sizzling new program spoofing the old comedy brought Bewitched to a whole new audience. Montgomery, Elizabeth Olsen's namesake, served as an inspiration for her action in the second episode of WandaVision. To complete the tribute, special effects were made utilizing strings exactly as they were in Bewitched. Montgomery's sad end was swift. You may recall that Montgomery was taken much too soon. What you may not know is that the Bewitched actress was diagnosed with colon cancer just 2 months before her death. Tragically, the sickness had already progressed to stage 4 at the time. Montgomery's boyfriend, Chris Foxworth, confirmed to Cancer Today that the actress had been having symptoms for quite some time before seeking medical attention. There are 2 revivals in the works. Remember the terrible Bewitched remake featuring Nicole Kidman? It doesn't seem to have discouraged Hollywood. In fact, 2 remakes are reportedly in the works. The first is a small screen adaptation that Kenya Barris, the creator of Blackish, will be directing. The other is a feature-length film starring Terry Matalas, the showrunner of Star Trek Picard. Moorhead was initially reluctant to play Endora. Moorhead, a distinguished actress who had previously worked with Orson Welles, was apparently hesitant to take on the part of Endora. Herbie J. Pilato believes this. Moorhead clearly consented to film the pilot in the end, but she had little hope that it would be picked up. Good thing she was wrong. David White lost his son in the Lockerbie disaster. David White, well known for portraying Darren's two-faced employer, Larry Tate, was so attached to his firstborn that he requested that his character's kid be named after him. Jonathan, the actual genuine Jonathan, tragically died in the Lockerbie bombing in 1988. That was one thing White never got over. Pilato later told Closer. He was devastated. Montgomery once flirted with Elvis. Montgomery would often appear on the set of Kid Galahad. Nothing out of the ordinary, you'd think, given that her husband, Gig Young, was one of the stars. According to rumors, the Bewitched actress was more interested in flirting with the film's star. That's right, Montgomery was reportedly infatuated with Elvis, and some claim the King felt the same way. It's unclear if the couple ever got together. Moorhead's death may have been A-bomb related. Moorhead's death from uterine cancer is said to be related to her time on the set of The Conqueror, and there might be something to it. Several additional performers from the 1956 film, including Susan Hayward and John Wayne, died of cancer. People report that 91 crew members were diagnosed with various kinds of the illness after working on site at Snow Canyon. To say the least, the Utah location was a poor option since it was just across the street from a Nevada nuclear weapons testing facility. The show owes its success to a Little Rascal. Yes, a former member of our gang, or maybe the Little Rascals, was important to the success of Bewitched. Jackie Cooper was in charge of Screen Gem's programming department when she put together a comedy package for ABC. Fortunately, Samantha Stevens' nose-crinkling escapades were included in one of these programs. Montgomery's success made her actor father jealous. Montgomery's father, actor Robert Montgomery, never wanted her to follow in his footsteps. Pilato claims that the top-secret star wanted his daughter to live a normal, married life away from the limelight, and he wasn't pleased when Montgomery became more successful than him. Bewitched's ratings dominance apparently drove the leading lady's father green with jealousy. York got the job by jumping on Montgomery's lap. When he auditioned for the role of Darren on Bewitched, York made sure the casting staff didn't forget about him. According to Pilato, the actor got on Montgomery's lap before saying, "Aren't we adorable together? You must hire me." Those who saw the prank certainly agreed, and the rest, as they say, is 60s comedy history. Alice Ghostly was initially asked to play another character. As housekeeper Esmeralda, Alice Ghostly appeared in 15 episodes of Bewitched. Initially, she was invited to replace the late Alice Pierce as nosy neighbor Mrs. Kravitz. Ghostly was nervous about stepping into her friend's footsteps, and she had similar reservations when she was approached to join the show in the aftermath of Marion Lorne's death. However, producer Bill Asher told her that Esmeralda would be a character comparable to Aunt Clara and not a straight replacement. York didn't like how Darren acted towards Samantha. Darren was never really fond of Samantha's supernatural skills, but who was the first to play him? He seemed to wish the character had been a bit more understanding. Plato states in an interview with Closer that York always saw that the show as a love story about two people who truly did adore each other. However, he was often told to portray Darren as unforgiving. Moorhead didn't believe the show was challenging enough. Moorhead seemed to enjoy her time as Endora, although she felt the part didn't properly showcase her abilities. Plato stated she once remarked to York, "It's fun to do the show, but when can we act?" Ouch! Moorhead, on the other hand, had talent. She'd previously worked with Orson Welles' Mercury Theater rep group and starred in Citizen Kane. York's talents were discovered by a nun. York's route to prominence was anything but typical. A nun, not a representative or a theater teacher, discovered his abilities. Yes, one of York's school sisters pushed him to seek a singing career. And he was probably delighted that Mom did, for at the age of 15, he scored his first regular position on the radio sitcom The Brewster Boy. Irene Vernon was fired through no fault of her own. You can't help but feel sorry for Irene Vernon. She played Louise Tate for 2 seasons before being fired before the 3rd, and it was all due to circumstances beyond her control. Vernon was only fired because of her relationship with Danny Arnold. He was a producer who had left Bewitched after the 1st season. Jim Backus was the first choice to play Abner Kravitz. It's tough to imagine anyone else portraying Abner Kravitz but George Tobias. However, the character actor was not the first option for the job. Jim Backus was the original choice of the producers. However, due to his obligations on Gilligan's Island, the man known as Thurston Howell III declined. Montgomery had a nose job during its run. Montgomery may have had some assistance when it came to twitching her nose. During the duration of Bewitched, the actress allegedly had many cosmetic surgery treatments, including a nose job. This was even hinted at in the show. Samantha is asked 3 times whether she's familiar with a plastic surgeon called Dr. Hafner. That's a little impolite. Darren's secretary was married to someone behind the scenes. Montgomery and Asher weren't the only real-life Bewitched pair working on set. In 1965, Jill Foster, who plays Darren's assistant, Betty, married director Bernard Slade. Foster and Slade, like their more famous contemporaries, were not a good combination. Unfortunately, their marriage also ended in divorce.